Hey everyone, thank you for joining this morning for our next webinar on YouTube. We are going to get started in about 60 seconds, so hang in there, thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this new webinar on creating great YouTube campaigns. My name is Karen Cahill, and I'm your host today. Scott Lawrence and Joy Scholl are also on the line to walk us through some of these building blocks.
Hey everybody.
And as always, I'll encourage everyone to submit questions and comments in the Q&A box rather than the chat box. And that way, if we can't get to your question during the webinar, we can pull it from the Q&A report afterwards and we can get back to you later. And also, we're going to provide an email at the end for any extra questions you might think of after this is over.
So for those unfamiliar with RMI, it stands for Response Mine Interactive. We're a digital marketing agency based in Atlanta. We'll go into a little more detail later about who we are and what we do.
Right, and prior to that, I want to cover off on a question I've gotten previously, which is, what does response mine actually mean? So the word response refers to the fact that we're a direct response digital marketing agency, which is to say that we're not a branding agency, but we're all about getting people to respond to our marketing, because marketing really should be all about sales.
Right, yes. Marketing should always be about making sales. And the word mine in response mine refers to how we're always mining for responses. We're mining for riches. Unlike traditional marketing, digital marketing enables us to use testing to have very quick turnarounds and ensure the best ads and landing pages are performing to make sales.
And that brings us back to why we're here. So let's have a quick look at today's agenda. And you can see here what we're going to cover today. We're going to start by talking about why YouTube deserves its own webinar. And then we'll go into some detail about what the ideal prospect of a particular industry looks like and how to figure that out.
Yes, and in this webinar, we're going to build a Fox YouTube campaign based on how we might set it up for one of our current clients who sells flooring and tile to end users. So the industry that we'll model the campaign around today is probably best described as home improvement.
Yeah, and Scott's going to cover a pretty brief research segment in the beginning called Know Your Prospect Through Research. And then we'll cover strategy and tactics for using that research to build a great YouTube campaign.
And last thing, we have a couple of fun trivia questions throughout the webinar to better engage with you. I want to encourage everyone to participate in those. The answers are anonymous, and the more people, the more fun. So please, let's have fun together.
Well, we only have a couple of slides on why this webinar is on YouTube. And I guess that's because people probably wouldn't have registered to attend if they didn't see the promise of YouTube marketing. So with that being said, we have a couple of statistics to share that maybe not everyone realizes.
Yeah, well, so there's been a lot of hoopla over how popular YouTube is. So we thought we'd review the most used video platforms for business today.
So I know Facebook is very popular with people, but I wouldn't have guessed Facebook would be that much more popular for businesses' video posts.
Right, well, according to Buffer.com and their poll, Facebook is 29% more popular with businesses who like to post their videos online. And that takes us to the next slide and our first fun trivia question. So we actually use this graph from the Pew Research Center in our webinar on Facebook advertising, just to show how popular Facebook is. But we removed Facebook and YouTube from the chart here on the screen in order to just test everybody's knowledge on it.
Right, and this is where we thought it would be kind of good to throw in our first trivia question of the day. So as Joy says, completely anonymous, so please tell us what you think when you see the question appear on your screen. That should be, there it is.
Yeah, so here's the question. Is YouTube more popular or less popular than Facebook? Well, for viewing, that is. And we're gonna show those two components on the graph as soon as everyone's answered. Okay, I'm gonna give about, I don't know, 5 more seconds. They're coming in. We got only 77% voting, 80% now. Good, thank you. Good, going up. All right. So here are the results. 62% of the audience says that YouTube is viewed more. 38% said Facebook. Okay, thanks for playing.
Well, it turns out that YouTube has a slight edge over Facebook for the last couple of years.
Yeah, so for some reason, Pew Research started tracking YouTube with social media platforms in 2018. Although I think most of us don't really consider YouTube to actually be, an example of social media.
Yeah, at any rate, according to Pew Research, more adults in the US use YouTube more than Facebook, which may mean there's a disparity between where businesses are targeting their video content and where their audiences are most likely to see their videos.
Right, that's right. And I think that provides a nice segue to the next segment on knowing your prospects.
Yeah, we talk about the importance of understanding who your best prospects are in a few webinars. And once again, we want to try and show that just a bit of inexpensive research enables a much more cost-effective spend of your marketing budget.
Right, and again, we needed to choose a business to create a YouTube campaign. So we're using one of our national retail clients, and they're in the home improvement industry.
Yeah, and just to be clear, although we've chosen to model our research around the home improvement sector, the tactics and strategies we're going to cover today are pretty ubiquitous. And this kind of research should be applicable to just about all B2C businesses and industries.
Right.
So on the screen is the question we asked people when conducting research on ideal prospects. We surveyed random people and asked if they'd recently remodeled or if they were planning to remodel in the next 2 years. Right,
but we did set some parameters around it. So, just so we could also make the most of our research budget. So we made sure that, just to place limitations on who would receive our survey based upon our client's target market. Also in the parameters of the research, we limited the reach of our survey to people who owned a home, obviously. And we included a minimum household income of $100,000, just to ensure we were reaching people with enough disposable income to have the means to remodel their homes.
Right, and that's not to say that people making less wouldn't be able to afford a remodel.
No, of course not. But we only want to put that threshold income parameter in there in order to make sure to have enough people who are either planning to remodel or have remodeled in the last 2 years, because only those people can we actually continue to ask questions of.
Okay, so let's have a look at the research graphs. And Scott, maybe you can tell us what we're looking at here.
Well, you can see it's a national poll, and we'll look at demographics of the respondents in just a second. But as you'll see, they could answer with one of 7 options. These first 3 pertain to whether they were planning to remodel their bathroom, kitchen, or another room.
So those are the people who are planning to remodel, which means the next group is made up of people who have already remodeled.
Right, and you can see they're all pretty similar, from 11 to 17%.
Yeah, and so that means that the red 22% are the people who said they haven't remodeled and they have no intention of remodeling.
That's right. And again, it's the reason we limited the respondent sample by age and income, because we aren't able to use any feedback from this group right here. So we threw those out. And we're only going to ask other questions from the group left on the screen. But before we dive a little deeper, I thought I'd share some demographics of the group we surveyed. We can limit respondents by any of these demographics, but the real power of having access to these demographics is in the data analysis afterward. We know from this data, for instance, that, much more than any other group, Caucasian women between the ages of 25 and 34 say they have absolutely no plans to remodel their kitchen or other rooms, for instance.
Right. Okay. And as a reminder, we will go over this research segment because we're going to build a YouTube campaign based on what we found here. So you said you continued to ask the remaining 78% of this respondent group further questions. So let's talk about that. And can we see the other questions that we asked them?
Yeah, and again, we're going to use all of this research in just a minute when we build our YouTube campaign in Google Ads, which we'll get into in about 2 more slides. So of the people who said they had or were going to remodel, we asked them how they preferred to buy their home improvement items. So we just surveyed them.
And one answer really ran away with it.
Yeah, you know, almost 2/3 said they preferred to look first online, then go to the store, that big yellow section there. But they had 4 choices. 11% said they wanted to purchase everything online without having to go to the store. And another 11% said, you know, they wanted to visit first, then buy it online.
And there's 15% are those who want to go to the store and buy it at the store. They don't feel like they need to go online to look at their options.
Right. So their input's not going to be important to us. So we just threw them out. But what that also means is that the other 85% are online at some point looking for remodeling solutions, and they're our target.
Right. The group you'll continue to survey.
Right. And the reason we asked more questions is because we wanted to find out how far away from the store we should geo-target for each store.
So this graph will only show the responses from the majority of people from the last slide. So those who said they wanted to look online first and then go to the store to purchase. And here's that pie chart coming up right now. So Scott, does anything jump out from this graph like the last one?
Not really, other than that no one claimed they weren't willing to travel at least 10 minutes. And that's that little 0% right there at the top. And that made us think our respondents were at least being truthful.
Right. So it seems to be pretty evenly broken out, with more than 3/4 of people saying they'd travel at least 40 minutes. So I think that'd be pretty good news for the flooring and tile client. They can specifically advertise to people further away than most might have thought.
Right, and the digital marketing tools like YouTube and Facebook and search engines have never been better at segmenting prospects based on geography, but also their demographics. What they like, even their browsing history, as we're going to talk about in just a second.
And the point is, you'll have much more impactful marketing, a much more impactful marketing campaign when you do this type of research.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, and we have one more slide on the demographics of people who are willing to travel farther distances to buy these home improvement products.
Right. So, okay, I'm going to try to go over each of these pie pieces very quickly because we have a lot to get through today. But this data will be important when we go through the tactical segment of setting up a YouTube campaign and Google Ads using demographics and audiences.
And since you want to cover off on each piece, we probably should point out that as we travel around the pie chart clockwise, the respondents say that they're more willing to travel a longer amount of time to visit the tile and flooring store.
Right. Okay. For the first pie piece, of the people who said they were only willing to travel 20 minutes or less from their homes, 2/3 of them were male. Also, 24% of this group were single rather than married. So next we looked at those people who said they'd travel up to 30 minutes away.
And females made up a larger percentage here than the one above it.
Right, and only 13% were single.
Okay, we're still moving clockwise around the pie chart. And it looks like we have a few more females and a fewer males here. And how many were married?
All of them.
Okay, so married people appeared to be more willing to travel a further amount of time away from home.
Yeah, and it's not here, but the age range of 60 to 64 chose this 30 to 40 minute travel time much more than others. In fact, it was statistically significant.
So I don't think it's my imagination that women appear to be growing stronger in the category of willingness to travel.
Right, and they're all married again.
So men aren't willing to travel as far, but if they are willing to travel, they're married men.
Right. And that appears to be the case, but now we're getting good information for who to target with our YouTube videos farther from the store. It's not on the slide, but we also know that this group is older, which is a demographic you can also target with.
Okay, and the last piece of the pie, the furthest amount of time traveled away from home. And the men are dropping like flies the further they have to travel away from home.
Yeah, well, again, this is just a brief snapshot of a few of the great data points you can get from research. And there are many other demographics that we haven't shared. But at any rate, after Joy covers off on the video placement strategy, I'll show you how to use that data we just reviewed to save a lot of money when you set up targeting for your YouTube video ads.
Okay, now we're at that video placement strategy section. And this is where we talk about how long we think the ads should be, whether they should be skippable or non-skippable, and what we think are the best practices for showcasing your videos. And I think everyone realizes that when given the choice, most people will skip the video ads as soon as they can in order to watch the video they're interested in. But we thought it would be fun to have everyone guess what percentage of the population will skip the ads when watching videos on their computers, at least according to one study. So if you would please answer the anonymous question we put on the screen, we'd appreciate it. And again, it would be great to get 100% participation. So the question is, what percentage of the population will skip video ads when watching on their computers? Is it 60, 65, 70, 75, or 80%?
And we're just going to give another 5 seconds again. Wow, this is amazingly disparate. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and announce it. 5% chose the lowest amount, 60%. Nobody chose 65. 43% chose 70%. 10% chose 75%, and the majority, well, not the majority, well, yeah, the majority, no, it's the same. 43% chose. So most people chose between 70 and 80%. All right, thanks for playing.
So according to this behavioral study, people on their desktops and laptops skipped ahead about 2/3 of the time an ad appeared. Joy, I would have guessed it would have been more than that.
Yes, well, that may be because you watched videos more on your phone than your laptop. If we compare people's viewing habits on computers to their smartphone viewing, you can see that people willing to watch ads without skipping them is less than half of those on their computers.
Yeah, that's closer to what I would have guessed. But then it raises the question of whether more people watch YouTube videos on their phones or computers.
Right. Well, the most comprehensive study we found on the behavior of YouTube viewers is by Magna Global, a division of the IPG Media Lab, which we're going to cover in more detail. But eMarketer in 2018 reported that 75% of all videos are played on mobile phones. So more people are watching videos on their phones, and more people on their phones are skipping ads more frequently.
Okay, so what about this Magna research?
So Magna studied more than 11,000 people and found that people's behavior also changed, not only by device, but also based on where they are viewing it. You can see from this graph that people at work seem to be more willing to watch the ad than people who are using their phones while they're out and about and not on company time.
So what was the end result?
Well, it helped us to devise a pretty solid strategy for creating and placing paid video ads.
So first things first, one question we've heard a lot is whether video ads should be skippable or non-skippable, or maybe it's a combination of both.
Well, Google, who owns YouTube, doesn't position them as non-skippable or skippable ads, but that is certainly how the common YouTube viewer sees them. As we saw in the previous slide, skip rates would certainly seem to indicate that most people would prefer not to watch advertisements.
So does that mean all ads should be the non-skippable kind?
No, I don't think so. We believe that all ads should be completely skippable for 4 reasons. The first reason is because most people innately skip ads as soon as they can. So requiring them to watch an ad probably doesn't provide a good user experience for your brand.
And that's a good point. So, how do you enable them to have a good experience, but also get your message across?
Well, you have to put the time into creating shorter ads with very concise and succinct messaging, getting to the point very quickly.
And by implying that you need to put more time into creating a shorter ad, you mean it's more difficult to make a short, concise ad than it is to make a longer advertisement.
Exactly. It's pretty difficult to get a compelling message across in 6 seconds. We have some great examples of ads in the last segment of this webinar. One of my favorite quotes, though, was when Mark Twain said, "I didn't have time to write a short letter, so here's a long one." This principle applies here. It can be very difficult to get your point across in a few words, but fortunately, video ads aren't constrained by the written word alone. Video enables people to pick up the message much more quickly through visuals now.
Okay, and again, I think we've got some examples of that in a minute. So that's one of the 4 reasons. What's the second reason?
Reason number 2, metrics show people are impressed with 6-second ads. They're quick, easy, and unobtrusive. People have come to expect a bumper ad nowadays. And that's the name for those short ads at the beginning of videos, the ones with the countdown timer on them we're familiar with. This is time that should be taken advantage of. And we can talk more about that one-on-one. Just shoot a message to us. The blue block boxes here show how skipped ads performed versus the pink boxes that show how a concise 6-second ad performs. So you can see the 6-second ad is more than twice as memorable. People's favorability and intent to buy something was also considerably higher for the 6-second ad. And that's important to those of us who are direct response marketers.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So what's a third reason?
Third reason is that we prefer using a cost per view or CPV rather than that CPM, which is cost per thousand impressions model. And you can only use the cost per view model with skippable ads and sequences. We will also expand our discussion on bumper ads because these ads are a great use of your resources.
Okay, got it. And the fourth reason?
Fourth reason is that we believe the risk of running non-skippable longer ads, which can be up to 15 seconds long, outweighs the reward by far. Non-skippable ads can create resentment against your brand and they cost more money, which we want neither of.
Right, so that's how the cost outweighs the reward.
Yes. And you can see here that the 6-second bumper ad performs better for the cost. The pink section is the brand recall of the 6-second ad, and the magenta section is the higher cost 15-second ad.
Okay, I see what you mean. And there's no telling how favorable the brand is with the people who are forced to watch the 15-second non-skippable ad.
Exactly right.
So we've talked a lot about 6-second ads, but the title at the top of these slides is 6, 15, and 30-second sequences. So it's probably about time to explain what sequences are.
And I can do that. Sequences are a series of ads that play in order to a specific viewer. We suggest 3 video ads to make a sequence. 3 videos establishes a pattern and reinforces your brand.
So why not like five videos in a sequence?
5 may be okay, but you've established a pattern after 3. And if your ad doesn't resonate with them by then, they're likely to start resenting your brand by being hounded with more ads. So digging a little deeper here, YouTube offers 2 options for sequences. 1 sequence per user every 7 days, or 1 sequence per user every 30 days. We suggest every 7 days. It works a lot like frequency cap. So the people seeing your ad aren't growing fatigued at seeing the same ads over and over.
And that might mean that you should run sequences alongside independent ads, right?
Yes, right, that's true. Because 1 sequence per week per user may not be enough to have an impact. But you could also have several sequence campaigns running parallel.
And in what order should the videos play, like from shortest to longest as they warm up to your brand, or is it like more random?
Well, we recommend all sequences start with a 6-second bumper ad for the reasons we discussed, but various ads will perform differently for reasons that are hard to explain. It usually has a lot to do with the creative. We'll discuss this more in our last segment, but here's how we think optimal testing of ads should be done. If you start with a 6-second bumper ad, it enables you to quickly introduce your product. So if you have a 6-second, a 15-second, and a 30-second ad, you can test it one of 3 ways. The first way is on the screen. This grouping is referred to as the tease, amplify, and echo. In other words, a 6-second ad followed by a longer ad followed by another 6-second ad. Think with Google.com says the tease, amplify, echo model leads to higher than average purchase intent. And you know that's music to the ears of direct marketer response marketers. The second grouping is known as the lead-in, which starts with a short video, but ends with a longer narrative to amplify the message. You can switch the order of the 15 and 30-second videos to see if there's any lift in conversions by showing them the 30-second video before the shorter video. And the last grouping we call the warm-up is where you serve them with 2 quick 6-second videos with a call to action before hitting them with something longer.
Okay, I think we're going to see an example of the warm-up sequence in just a minute, but we also wanted to point out that 4 of these series include a double tap of 6-second videos. In other words, they hit the viewer with 2 6-second videos at different times. And I suppose that given that the research indicates people actually prefer 6-second ads, that's probably a good idea.
Yes. And keep in mind, we've talked mostly about what we feel is the most impactful method for reaching and engaging prospects in this segment. But it's also important to remember that if you have a longer ad that people don't watch to the end or don't click on to learn more, you're not going to be charged for that. I repeat, you are not charged for ads that aren't clicked on.
You know, a minute ago, you mentioned having a frequency cap, but there may be some folk listening in today that only have 1 or 2 ads and can't do ad sequences. So is there a limitation on how frequently they can run individual ads?
Well, we recommend frequency caps in all cases. That's because people don't like to be bombarded constantly with the same ads. Our standards best practice is 5 per week.
Okay, thanks, Joy. So the next 2 segments are going to be on the tactical application of segmenting and targeting your best prospects, followed by what we here at RMI think are the best in class examples of short and or clever videos. But first, this is where we've asked Obi Gray to insert his 2-minute commercial about who we are at RMI and what we do.
Yes, thank you, Karen, and all of you for sharing a moment with us today. Listen, I have a confession to make. This is always my favorite time of the week, coming together in this format to share best practices and help you all as marketers be more efficient at acquiring new customers and growing revenue. And let's face it, that's why we're all here. And it's certainly what we're about at RMI, helping you grow your business by leveraging these direct response channels. And we do that by testing, measuring, and optimizing these channels to help you turn more of your best prospects into customers, clients, or patients, depending on your industry. And today, we're giving all of you a glimpse into our process with a digital marketing analysis, courtesy of the team here at RMI. In the analysis, we audit the overall health of your website from an SEO perspective. We take a deep dive into your Google Analytics to examine current traffic behavior and give you insights into how you stack up against your top competitors. And folks, I'm telling you, I've done several of these over the last couple of weeks, and this is exciting stuff because what we're doing is helping you discover some things to drive more leads, and as I stated earlier, turn more of them into revenue. And all you have to do is check the box on your screen right now, and I'll connect with you to get you started.
Okay, everyone, you should see that question on your screens right now.
Yes, and I'll add, you all should have an email from me in your inbox right now with a link to schedule time on my calendar at your convenience. I'm looking forward to connecting with you guys. And Karen, that concludes the commercial break. Imagine you'll give them a few more seconds here.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll leave that up for a couple more seconds. Obi, thanks for that. And moving along here, as we promised, we've said we're going to show who to target and how to target them. So this is the how part of that equation. Earlier, Scott shared the data that indicated prospective new customers with certain demographics looking for flooring and tile had different characteristics. So here again, Scott's going to revisit how to use that data and make it actionable.
Right. Well, YouTube is owned by Google, of course. And, you know, you place YouTube video ads using Google ads, that platform. Anyway, we figured there are probably some AdWords veterans tuning in today. And there are also probably some folks listening who haven't yet started to cash in on YouTube's popularity. So, you know, rather than using still screen grabs like we've done for the webinar so far, in this segment, we decided just go into Google Ads and show what a powerful interactive tool it is, and you know, certainly as it relates to YouTube and their audiences.
Okay, let's do that, Scott.
Okay, folks, here we are inside of Google Ads, formerly known as Google AdWords. And I thought I'd show how we can utilize the demographics we pulled from the research in order to better target our ideal prospects. So first, I'd ask everyone to recall that in the research segment, we talked about how the people who were willing to travel farther distances or further amount of time seemed to have the same distinct commonality that they were female and married. There were a few other characteristics that had a little more income and so forth, but just for the sake of time, we'll try to get through this by showing you how that works using demographics. So you can target by all of these things here on the left nav, but we'll pull up demographics, and you can see that we can go here to age, adjust the filter, and you know, we can pull up any age range that we like. So we know that 18 to 24 is no good for them. We realized that women who were actually the average age was 44. So we'll go 35, 44, 55, 64, and now we're locking them in for this particular campaign that we want to run for women trying to reach outside of a normal focused area. And then next, we can go to gender. And again, we are trying to target females. So we find that the female gender, apply, now we've got that locked in. And then the next step is just to go down here to locations, and we are going to try and target a particular location. I happen to know that, so you go to select the campaign, and we can target by radius. I happen to know that this particular tile and flooring location near me is on Holcomb Bridge Road, so we'll choose that. And you can see now we're targeting 20 miles. We can make this 15 miles if you like. We could make it 20 miles. Whatever you think is the right amount of time and distance that you believe that this targeted group is willing to travel. We initially said 20 miles, so we'll keep it at 20. And there you have it. We're going to save that into place. But next I wanted to show you the audiences category, because this really gives you an abundance of power to really go in and target that group that you're trying to narrow the focus on. So you can find inside of audiences here, you've got search, ideas, and browse. And let me just point out the browse. These detailed demographics really enable you to see a lot about people. You can see demographics over here, but we've got detailed demographics. So for instance, if you're running a child care center, you'd be able to look and find parents of a particular age. And that's really something. But again, for our particular interest, we were looking for women who were married. You may recall they had a little bit higher income, which we've already established in the parameters of our search. But the next thing that we wanted to focus in on, and by the way, if they have higher education, we could certainly look at that if that was one of the parameters that we identified separated this particular group. But homeowner status obviously, we wanted to get homeowners and not renters in this particular group that we're trying to target. So we'll just save that in place here. I also want to point out that you can get to these audiences a couple of different ways. So if we pull it up by the browse feature, certainly you can get to them by who they are, what their interests are. This was originally called Affinity, and you could choose everyone in home and garden, but that is going to be too broad. So we'd want to pull up home and garden and do-it-yourselfers. This is using Google's logic to figure out who the do-it-yourselfers are, and it is really something that they it's almost creepy scary that they have this ability to track people in that way, but they do. And so we could, you can see that depending on what business you're running, there are a lot of different ways to target these people. So we're just going to lock that in. And I'll just point out that Google has identified in-market audiences. In-market audiences are those groups that they have identified as being potential buyers in your market for your product or service. So you can choose it through search, or you can go through browse. They go to the same place. It's just a different way of finding it. And of course, the next part is the in-market and life events. These in-market audiences are really quite valuable. Google offers a lot of data for you to utilize, whether it's home and garden or financial services. If you're in a software business, it offers a lot for every type of business to target based upon their browsing history. Now, I'll point out that some folks have really honed in on keywords. So they wanted to find people based upon what keywords they're searching with. And we wouldn't really recommend that because you have the tendency then to hone in too narrowly on a target that based upon what you think the keywords should be, as opposed to using Google's logic. And in our case, we are trying to target a small town. So if you're targeting a small town and your whole audience is only a few thousand people, you need to use broader targeting, like topics, in-market audiences, or very large channels. On the other hand, if you're going to a larger area and your potential audience is in the tens of millions, so you have a national campaign you're running, you should use custom audiences or really specific placements to cut away from the low quality views. But I will suggest, since we're setting up a local intent campaign, that we would not try to use placements. You could actually use placements to try and place your video ad on HGTV as an example. But really, now you're narrowing in way too much, we would argue. Although it is true that you could use it for exclusions. So there are particular channels that you don't want to be a part of for whatever reason. You can certainly use that. And then the last thing I would say is landing pages. We'd probably stay away from that as well, and that would be our advice. So there are ways to really hone in on exactly what target you want so you can make the most of your marketing budget. You want to make it as narrow as possible to the group of people that you've identified through your market research who are most likely to be your best prospects. Okay, folks, here.
Thanks, Scott. I think that really showed what a powerful tool Google Ads can be when targeting people with videos. And I see why you say it might be sort of creepy, scary, powerful, but they've got the data and it's arguably the best targeting that marketing has ever seen. So after that kind of creepy, scary, we're looking for something a little more lighthearted. And the next section is perhaps the most entertaining part of this particular webinar, although Scott is very entertaining. We're going to tackle the question of how to get your prospect to engage with your ad. So what we did was gathered a few examples of how organizations have quickly engaged their prospects in creative ways. So let's take a look.
Okay, we've talked about how difficult it is to get your point across in seconds. So let's take a look at how this video gets the point across with literally a few words.
Paul's kids, because parenting is hard enough.
So that one might hit a little close to home for those of us who are parents, but it's definitely useful during this sort of these COVID times.
Yes, and well, there's a humor element in this one, but this ad really draws parents in because it's so relatable. I mean, I think it's safe to say that if you've had a small child around, then you've probably been coughed on.
Yeah, you feel sorry for both of them, but the cough drop lollipop makes her happy, which undoubtedly makes the parent happy. And I think it's really remarkable how much emotion and relatability you can express in such a short video.
Sure, humor and emotion are excellent ways to connect and engage with the viewer. This one utilizes both emotions and is very well done.
And here's an ad from Mercedes-Benz that's set up in a really interesting way.
So there's a few things this ad does really well. First, it grabs a viewer's attention because there's no music. You only hear a car accelerating. Second, the words flash quickly across the screen, enticing people to pay attention so they will see the message. That's especially useful in this ad because many viewers just watch the countdown clock in order to skip to the next video. But this ad draws their eye away from it.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty memorable ad for 3.8 seconds. And you're right, a voiceover would probably only have detracted from the message. The sound of the engine is really all you need.
Yes. So those were clever ways of getting a point across, but they don't all have to be that clever. Let's take a look at another ad.
So it's pretty straightforward. It does use imagery and music reasonably well to paint the picture of taking a vacation by way of candy bar, but you know, you're hearing the steel drum, you're probably not in Minnesota. The island music connects with the image, hopefully working to solidify that connection in the viewer's brain. So they'll remember the ad or the music when they see the candy name.
Yes, and remember, if this is run as a part of a sequence, the 6-second ad only has to get your attention as a part of the lead-in or the warm-up or the tease, amplify, and echo type of ad sequence that we talked about. So Mounds should have a solid call to action and another ad in their sequence. Okay, so far we've only looked at those short 6-second ads, but if we're building sequence ads, we'll also need to utilize longer ads too. And this ad that we're fixing to play engages the viewer by specifically calling out the skip ad feature.
You can skip this ad, but then you'll electrocute this puppy. Good for you. You just saved the puppy. And in the process, you cost Nail Communications about 50 cents. But that's all right with us, because when we get the bill from YouTube for this ad, we'll donate the same exact amount to the ASPCA to save some more puppies. Click here so you can do the same.
Yeah, I don't know if I love the idea of threatening a dog, even in jest, but it's definitely attention grabbing.
They seem to pull it off though, because they say they're going to give money to the ASPCA, which is an organization dedicated to protect animals against that type of cruelty.
Yeah, they did a very good job of making the electrocution joke within 6 seconds. So I guess this ad worked pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to save a puppy? And
Right.
the idea of making a joke that explicitly uses the skip ad feature is pretty clever. But now let's see how to bring them all together. We talked in the strategy segment about the tease, amplify, and echo and warm-up sequence models. So we want to give an example of one of those next.
You can
Right, so that's part 2 of the 3.8 second ad we saw just a minute ago, right?
Right. This one actually did use the full 6 seconds of the bumper ad. And it's an interesting perspective from the viewer standpoint. When many viewers just watch the countdown clock, ready to leave the ad behind at their earliest convenience, the car in the ad is leaving the viewer behind.
And no doubt the viewer appreciates the shortness of it. But also, if you've targeted the type of consumer who Google considers in market for a sports car, chances are that that audience will appreciate the commercial even more. Okay, so that was a warm-up ad. Let's see another.
Okay, remember with the warm-up sequence, you play 2 short ads up front just to whet the viewer's appetite.
Right, so we're warmed up. The first ad was about 4 seconds long, and the second was around about 6 seconds. So let's see the last segment. So the first time I saw this ad, I actually got chill bumps from it. I really feel it's got, a great payoff. So other than my chill bumps, why do you think it works?
Well, again, it's clearly a continuation of the first 2 ads.
Right, the same unmistakable yellow car.
Right, but you also hear that iconic, unmistakable revved engine at exactly 5 seconds into the ad, just before the viewer is able to skip the ad. That's what we call the quick start. This one keeps you watching because you've already been warmed up to the other 2 ads. And that same rev Mercedes engine that we love.
And speaking of a quick start, that's important enough to talk a little bit more about.
Well, we've seen plenty of attention grabbers. And in the strategy segment, we said that ideally we have 6, 15, and 30-second advertisements in a sequence.
But what we're going to do with this ad is pause it at 6 seconds and ask a question of everyone. And this one's not a poll, it's just more of a rhetorical question.
So let's see the ad. Okay, this is the point.
Hold on, that was the wrong ad. Sorry.
Well done, Scott.
My bad.
Okay, thanks, Scott. So this is the point where you can skip forward in your ad. Do you want to skip forward? Or do you want to know why this girl is jumping and slap at Post-it notes on her wall? I mean, it's an odd thing to do, so it sort of grabs your attention. And the reality is that people are more engaged today with online videos than they are traditional TV commercials. A quick start is definitely a best practice, but then you've got to pay the viewer off with the story.
Yeah, and of course, if you're asking everyone if they wanted to, if asking everyone if they wanted to skip forward was a rhetorical question, maybe we just watch the rest of the ad now.
So who's first? No way. Did you see that?
When you write something down, you're 42% more likely to make it happen. Post-it Super Sticky Notes have 2 times the sticking power. So stick, re-stick, and make it stick with Post-it brand.
Guys, is there anything better than an underdog story? I don't think so. She had a goal, a dream, and a Post-it note helps her make her dream come true.
Yeah, everyone loves the underdog story. The fact that they were able to tell the story in 30 seconds is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think the larger point here is that the ad did several things right. It got your attention within 6 seconds, and it had a payoff for the viewer with 3M's product playing a central role in making her dream come true. I think that's really well done.
I agree. And while on the topic of doing things well, let's take a look at our best practices.
Right. First, it's a technical thing, but you want to make sure your ads are good for both mobile and desktop viewers. If the product is too small on a small screen, you might want to rethink the product placement.
Yes. Second, as we've pointed out more than once, you need to get their attention within 6 seconds. A sequence may help you keep their attention longer as long as you tie the ads together like Mercedes did with their revved engine at 5 seconds.
And it may be easier said than done, but emotion is a really great captivator. And if it's funny, viewers may wait for the punchline.
Right. We've seen a number of ways to creatively highlight the product, a few being the ones we shared of the underdog, the Mercedes, and the candy bar.
But of course, it is best to tell a story, and then your viewers have two choices: skip the ad or be drawn in. Give them that reason to continue watching. So let's insert the feedback form now, Scott, if you don't mind. But before we go, there's a blog you should know about. It's called Actively Seeking Shoppers, and it's one that our gurus here at RMI contribute to regularly. It's free stuff from veterans in the space, so check it out, and you may want to subscribe to the newsletter.
Yeah, and you should see the feedback form on your screen now. You know, as we said earlier, we'd really appreciate it if you could give, you know, everybody could fill that out for us, because it really helps us to create new and better webinars. And please do indicate if you'd, you know, like to have further talks with us. Oh, and we're going to leave that up, but I just inserted this here. So we'll leave the feedback form up. I just wanted to put this in here because, you know, what Obi and his team do is they look at your digital footprint, and this is an example of like a keyword comparison that we've done. You can see where your competitors are ranking and what you're ranking for. And in some cases, this is really, really valuable to people, because it really enables them to see, oh, gee, maybe I should, I should be ranking for the words that my competitors are ranking for. And finally, this last slide, this site health measurement is not for an e-commerce site. So 500 pages represents a really large organization, but 226 errors is really kind of a big deal. And you can see here that the majority of them were actually what Joy was talking about. So the best way for more people to find your company online is by far by ranking in organic search. But it takes time. And, you know, so it's a little bit like your 401k. You know, if it's an investment, it's going to pay off over time. So anyway, we can help you with that stuff. And if you have questions about something we talked about here today, or anything else for that matter, feel free to send an email to Obi. It's a little bit light, but it's obi.gray@responsemind.com. He's our business development director.
Okay, I think that just about wraps it up for today.
And as a reminder, we'll need to get 3 URLs from you guys, or you can just have a conversation with Obi, and he can look into it for you.
Okay, thanks everyone once again for joining us today. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
See ya.
Bye.